Hey, would you rather have another 5 clients paying you $10,000 a month or 50 clients paying you $1,000 a month? Well, I polled recently my Facebook community of over 9,000 entrepreneurs, B2B entrepreneurs, and agency owners, and most people said they'd rather have less clients paying them more money, aka whale clients, big companies. But most people didn't know where to find these clients, how to approach them, how to do outreach, and how the sales process is different when you're working with larger companies. That's exactly what we're going to give you the keys to and the answers to today in this video, because today I'm doing a series, a 3-part series on how to land whale clients. Look, 4 or 5 years ago, I landed my first whale client. He was paying me and my team $15,000 a month for our lead gen services, and it changed everything to me. It opened up so many doors to more bigger clients and big names that I could, use to impress other future big clients, right? Because once you land a few big clients, you have that reputation that you can work for these big guys. You have those big brands, those logos you can put on your website, and it just opens up a lot of doors for you. So this changed everything for me a while ago, and I want to make a series on it. So this is actually part 3 of a 3-part series. We did part 1 and 2 the previous 2 weeks. The first part was about, niche and offer and how to find these clients in the first place. Last week's part 2 was more about outreach, my #1 outreach strategy to find these whale clients and how to actually stand out and get them to want to meet with you. And today's part 3 is more about the sales process, how the sales process looks differently when you're talking to bigger companies, selling bigger retainers and bigger packages versus trying to sell to small businesses. So if you didn't watch part 1 and 2 already, then definitely go back and watch that. There'll be a link down below to watch part 1 and 2. Get yourself caught up and come back and watch this video. Anyways, today we're gonna dive into sales, and I'm excited for part 3 of the 3-part series. Hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this. All right, let's go into it. I'm gonna go to my computer now, share some slides, and walk you through the sales process. Welcome everyone to another episode of How to Scale an Agency. I'm your host, Cassata. And today we're going to How to Land Whale Clients part 3 of the 3-part series. And this is the secret to earning more without working more and making your business mega hyper profitable. So if you're just getting caught up, today's episode is actually part 3 of a 3-part series we've been doing for the last few weeks on how to land whale clients. So this is the finale. So first, here's what we covered in part 1, in case you are not caught up and you want to go back and watch it again. Part 1 is what whale clients are, how it helps your business, how to enhance your offer to be more attractive to these whale clients, and how to adjust your niche and really dial in on these clients. What we covered last week for the part 2 was more about actually the lead gen side, how to actually find these clients, right? So we covered the best channel for getting leads with big fish clients, the 3 key differences in marketing to these clients, our tried and true average strategy, our hyper-personalized and give massive value upfront outreach strategy for getting these clients, and also templates and examples of successful outreach emails. So if you're just tuning in today to the part 3, definitely go back and watch part 1 and part 2. Today, we're going to talk more about sales. And this is all to help you learn how to increase your prices and get paid way more by finding and landing big fish clients, so that ultimately you can get paid 5 to 10 times more for the same work you're already doing. Because when you work with these bigger companies, they're going to pay you a boatload more because they have a bigger problem, but you're not essentially doing that much more work. It's the same expertise, same skills that you're offering to these smaller businesses, right? So that's why it's the true secret to earning more money from less time spent. And if you're struggling to break past your current revenue level, this is the #1 thing you can do to solve that and just be able to get a huge revenue boost in a short amount of time, right? Why I decided to make this series, for those of you that are here for the first time, first episode today, 2 reasons. First, I landed my first whale client 4 or 5 years ago. It was a client paying me and my team $15,000 a month for paid advertising services. And it was absolutely a game changer. It changed my whole mindset on how I could grow my business and really approach the agency game so differently, because after that, I started landing more and really raised my standards on who I wanted to work with. But it was mind-blowing because I realized, okay, I'm getting paid 10 times more, because at the time, most of my clients were just like $2K a month, $3K a month retainers. I was getting paid so much more, but it wasn't necessarily that much more work. And these clients were even easier to deal with. So total game changer. And I realized that how much more profitable they are. Second reason is I polled 8,000 agencies recently in our Facebook group, and I found that this is the #1 topic almost everyone wanted to learn. And there's not really a lot of good information out there. So that's why we made this series. And ultimately, it's because I talk to agencies and consultants a lot who have this problem, right? They're growing the business, they have a lot of clients, and they're just making okay profit, but they feel like ultimately, for all the work they're putting in, what they're taking home just isn't worth it. Compared to all the effort they're putting in, everything that they're putting forward, it's just not enough as far as what they're getting out of it, and something needs to change. And a lot of times when I'm speaking with a client about this same problem, they're already getting leads, they're closing clients, they're fulfilling, they're checking all the boxes of a successful agency, but they're still not left with much profit. And it just feels like they work too much for too little. And what's missing, right? And usually the problem is they think that they need more leads or they need to get better at sales. That's always the question I get asked, which of course, this is always going to be helpful, right? It's always helpful to get more leads. We can always improve our sales skills and our sales process, right? But here's the truth. What if you could just talk to a higher level business owner who had a more valuable, larger scale problem to solve, and they could pay you much more? They could pay you handsomely for the same work you're already doing for the small time clients. That's what whale clients are. They're bigger companies with bigger pockets and bigger problems, right? So what a lot of agencies don't realize is that it's who you sell and what you sell that has more of an impact on your growth than anything else, the niche and the offer. So when you create a higher ticket offer to sell to whale clients who can pay you more, this is the number one way to solve this and just to get ahead way, way faster. Now, some people I talk to do recognize this. They do recognize the value of trying to find these big fish clients, but they don't know either A, how to find these leads and the differences in how to market to them and how to get them on a call with you, which is what we covered last week in part 2, or B, how the sales process is different. The way you approach sales is different when you're trying to sign these whale clients, right? And that's what we're covering today. So let's fix that today. Today, I'm going to cover 5 tips for selling to larger companies. So really, we're getting more into the sales process today in terms of once you're actually getting these leads, once you're using the strategies we taught you in part 2 for outreach, once you're getting these leads, once you're having conversations with these bigger companies, how is the sales process different? What do you need to be aware of, right? So I'm going to cover 5 key pieces in the sales process that are different and what you want to be prepared for. So number 1 is you have to understand the differences in what these big companies value and adjust your pitch accordingly. So what big companies value when choosing the right agency, consultant, or vendor is different than when you're talking to a small business or a local business. So the main difference is this. Small businesses are very conscious of budget, of course, naturally, and they're more likely to go and filter on who they want to work with based on who's going to get them the best deal and the best value for money, right? And small businesses have a much more short-term focus. They need to see the ROI sooner, right? Most small businesses, they can't shell out 10, 20, 30 grand and just get it back 6, 12 months later, right? They need to see that there's an ROI sooner, right? That's why if you're dealing with a lot of small businesses, you probably get asked this question all the time, like, what's the ROI? How soon can we start seeing results? Because they're strapped for cash. So when you're selling to small businesses, like most of you are now, the sale hinges more on fitting into their budget and showing a clear path towards the ROI. Now, how it's different with big businesses and whale clients is rather than being budget conscious, they're more conscious of reliability and quality. So at the end of the day, they're more likely to go for who they feel the most certain in their ability to deliver and get their result promised. So it's more about, is this person going to do a good job and deliver what they say? So for them, like, money isn't a problem, but getting the project completed successfully is the priority. That is the potential problem because they have a lot more at stake. So at the end of the day, with these big companies, the sale hinges more on trust and their confidence in you. And this is where your credibility, your track record, your case studies and social proof is going to be the make or break factor here. So that's number 1. And one thing to add too is with these bigger companies, you doing a good job for their project matters a lot more because there's a lot more at stake, right? Usually you're dealing with an employee or a manager when you're selling to a big company, right? And with the employee, like, what's at stake for them is they can lose their job if they make the wrong decision, hire the wrong person that completely screws up a project. So really, like, reliability, security, quality, that's absolutely the biggest thing for these companies. So it's less about budget and more about proving confidence and building trust. So tip number 2 is research is your best friend. It's easier to research a larger business and you have to use this to your advantage, right? So when you start selling to bigger companies, they have so much more information about them online that's available. So make sure you're using this to your advantage in the sales process and researching them, finding out all this useful information before the call. So there's 2 reasons why this matters. First, you stand out more when you show that you've done your homework and you've put effort into the prospect before they've even hired you. This always works on me whenever I'm talking to a potential consultant or agency I want to hire, and they're mentioning specific things about my business or things I posted about, or things from my LinkedIn profile or website or whatever it is. I'm always more impressed that they put their homework in because it shows me, like, this person's serious, this person's professional, this person is actually driven. And if they're taking that seriously and putting in all this effort before I've hired them, imagine what it's going to be like after I've hired them. So that's the first thing. And on the flip side of that, if you do zero research and if you just ask basic questions that you could have found on their website, it makes you look like a complete bozo and really just frustrates them for wasting their time. Because like we talked about last week with outreach, these bigger companies, like, they're busier. They don't have as much time available just to hop on calls, right? They're busier. They have a lot more going on, a lot of employees to manage. So the worst thing you can do is waste their time, right? That's the biggest way to lose trust. So that's the first reason why research matters. And second is because sales is all about information. It's all about the game of information, right? So the more information you have to your advantage, the better. Think about how a lawyer is going to, like, they're going to prepare all the facts, do all this research, and they're trying to collect all this information so that they could find, like, the best argument they can make in court for their presentation, right? Pretty much you do the same thing in sales, and the argument is about, like, why they should consider your solution. So think about it like that, right? When you're researching, you're trying to find ammo and bullet points you can use to make the case for why they should hire you. So there's 3 different golden opportunities for research. And again, when you're selling to a small business, there's not always much information available about them online. They're not always active on social media. They're not likely featured in the news or on, like, other websites. But with big companies, they are, right? So you could find out a lot about them. And there's a lot of places you can look online, really just Googling a company's name. If they're a bigger company, you'll find a bunch of stuff about them. But there's 3 golden opportunities for research, 3 different places you want to focus on first. And whenever I'm meeting with a whale client, these are 3 places I look. So first is social media, right? These bigger companies are more likely to have a marketing team and therefore an active social presence. And a lot of times the leaders of the company or the person you might be speaking to, your point of contact, might even have a personal brand as well. They might be posting on LinkedIn. So you want to look at what they're posting about, because when you look at what they're posting about, you can get a vibe for like where their company is going at the moment, what they have going on, and really what's important to them, right? So this gives you a look into what their current priorities are. And when you can identify what some of their current priorities are based on what they're posting about a lot, what they're talking about, you can find something to tie that into your solution as far as, hey, like they have a priority about this and that relates to my solution and why they should hire me. You can really make a strong case for the why now, like why this is the right time to talk to someone like you, right? So that's what you're looking for. That's what you're looking for all your research. You're trying to find something that ties into your service, something that makes the case for if they're caring about this direction now, if they're focusing on this, then it makes perfect sense for why they should hire you. So you're trying to find like a way to put 2 and 2 together. Another option to do this is news and press, right? So look about announcements on their end around product launches, company updates, partnerships, if they got funding recently. And you can also see where they were externally featured in the press, in the news, in the media, whatever it is. Another example would be hiring, right? So these are the first, again, a lot of places you can look, but these are the first 3 places I would look. Third one is hiring. So you can look on LinkedIn, you can look on Glassdoor, and you can see current roles they're hiring for, and you can see what departments or initiatives they're expanding on. So again, all of this gives you a better insight into what's happening in the company, what's top of mind, what they're prioritizing, and you can find something that relates to your service and tie that in, right? And that really makes the case for why now. So for example, if you're offering marketing services and that they're hiring a lot of different roles in their marketing department, you know that they're investing in marketing, they're investing in growth, and they have a strong reason to hire you as well to help make sure it goes well. So tip number 3 is the job roles you work with and the value proposition to them is different. So you have to learn how this works first things first, right? We covered this a little bit last week with outreach, but I just want to brush over it again in case you weren't there. So ultimately the persona or the job title that you reach out to is usually different when you're reaching out to bigger companies. So when you sell to a business that has, let's say, less than 25 or 50 employees, most of the time, almost all the time, you're dealing with the business owner. They're your point of contact. They're the one who signs the checks, right? And they're the one that makes the decisions on the consultants and the agencies that they work with, right? But this is not always the case as you scale up. So rule of thumb is that the bigger the company is, the less likely you are to be dealing with the business owner or the C-suite. Because as this company grows, the C-suite or the owner becomes less and less involved with the nitty-gritty details of the business and the consultants, agencies they hire, and they become more and more concerned with higher level matters like overall growth, cost reduction, big picture vision, strategy, company culture, hiring, things like that. So as you scale up to bigger companies, there's less of a chance that you're actually dealing with the owner himself. And related to this is the value proposition and the reason that they'd hire you are different, right? Because different job roles care about different things, right? So here's the rule of thumb for this. The owner and the C-suite care more about macro, right? They care more about higher level matters, what's going to benefit the business as a whole. Growth, profitability, position in the marketplace, brand, right? Mid-level managers and directors, they care more about the micro. They care more about what pertains to their specific job and their specific function in the company. So when you're dealing with a mid-level manager, a director, or a VP, they care more about how you're going to help them improve specific KPIs and metrics that relate to their job. Essentially, whatever they get measured on, whatever they're looking at every day, that's what matters to them, right? So when you're reaching out over email, when you're having a call with them in the sales process, you want to talk about these things, right? So as an example, let's say you're an agency that sells content marketing and SEO services. A mid-level manager, the job title there would be something like marketing director, digital marketing director, head of growth, head of demand generation, head of inbound, something along those lines. And they would care about metrics like how you can help them increase organic traffic and how you can help them climb to higher positions on Google for certain keywords, right? Whereas if you're talking to the owner, the business owner, a lot of that might go over their head. They care more about like, okay, how many leads is it going to get me? How many sales can I get? How much revenue could we generate from this channel as a whole? So again, they care more about the macro and higher level matters. So you have to understand what these differences are. So first you have to understand like, what are the different job roles I'm reaching out to, right? So you have to do a little bit of research if you're not sure. If you never worked with a big company before, if you have, then you can just look back to who was the point of contact and who was the person that you mainly were in touch with once you started the job. You have to know who the job roles are and then what matters to them, right? Because if you're selling to small businesses only now and you're only dealing with the business owner or the founder, the conversation is different, right? The things that they care about are different than what a mid-level manager at a big company would care about. And it's all about finding out like, really, what are the 2 to 3 KPIs that their job is measured on, right? What are they in charge of improving? So moving on from that, tip number 4 is you have to know the differences in selling to an employee versus a business owner. So we already talked about one in terms of what matters to them, And the value proposition is different based on if you're selling to an employee versus the business owner. But once you're actually in the door, once you're actually going through the sales process, there's three main differences I found here. So the first difference is that they're spending their company's money. They're not spending their own money, which this is really to your advantage, right? So when you're dealing with a manager, director, VP, they're not as emotionally attached to the sale. They're more willing to spend money because they've already been given a certain budget for their department for the quarter, right? And they have to spend it. So it's easier for them to part with funds. And again, it just makes the sales process easier. It's one less objection to deal with because you're only going to deal with like logistical money objections if it fits their budget or whatever that is. You're not going to be dealing with the fear or emotional money objections that happen when you're selling to someone who's the owner and it's coming out of their own pocket. So that's awesome. Second difference is business owners care more about the business, employees care more about the job. This is the biggest thing you have to realize when you're selling to an employee of a company versus the owner is they care more about their job than anything, right? Yes, they care about the business. Yes, they want to know how it's going to help improve the business, but ultimately like they're there for their career, not for the company. They don't own the company. So they're there for themselves first. So when you're selling service to a business owner, their concern is, okay, if this goes south, it's going to hurt the business. And they're concerned about the business as a whole. But when you're selling to an employee, they're thinking, okay, if this goes south, it's going to hurt their status. It's going to make them look bad because they're the one that brought you on. And they could even get fired, worst case scenario. So that's their biggest concern. This goes back to what I said earlier about them being conscious of reliability and quality. So you have to show them why this isn't going to happen, right? Show them why they're going to look like the hero and there's not going to be a risk that they look bad or even get fired because you're going to do a great job for them. So really important that you recognize this. Like that's really what they're concerned about is their own role and how their status looks in the company. So on the flip side, you have to make sure that you're showing them that they are the hero. And by you delivering their project, you're going to make them look super badass, super awesome. And you're going to be their biggest supporter. So it's all about making them look good and their status within the company and avoiding any risk that they think it's going to go wrong and you're going to make them look bad. So that's the difference in what they're looking for, what they're not looking for compared to when you're dealing with the owner. He's less thinking about himself or herself and more about how this is going to affect the business as a whole. And the third thing that can happen, the third difference when you're selling to an employee versus business owner that I've noticed is you have to avoid being seen as a threat, right? So some employees, I dealt with this a lot, right? Some employees, they think that outside agencies or consultants are a threat to them, thinking that they could get replaced, which does happen sometimes. So it's a valid concern. So this is a new objection that you probably wouldn't have dealt with before and you'll have to deal with now. And honestly, like it's not an objection they would tell you. I've never had anyone tell this to my face because it's like awkward. They wouldn't say that. So usually this is a hidden or unspoken objection. And the employee that you're dealing with, they would just find another way to prevent things from moving forward or try to find another way to blow up the deal, right? Behind your back. So have to be aware of that. And the key to this is build good rapport and build a great relationship with them. Show them how you're not going to overlap with their work and you're not going to do all the things that they do, but instead, in their mind, they should see you as an extension of them, an extension of their team. Ultimately, you're there to help make their job easier, kind of like a sidekick, right? You're not the hero, you're the sidekick to them. That's how you want them to feel because otherwise they're going to worry like, okay, this person's going to take my job because this happens a lot and they're going to find a way just to prevent things from moving forward, whether they tell you or not. So make sure they know that you're just here to support them and make their life easier, make their job easier, make them the hero, make them more successful, help them hit their KPIs and their quarterly, yearly goals, right? Rather than giving them the feeling that you're going to overlap what they do and eventually replace them. So really important. Now, next tip is you have to learn how to navigate multiple decision makers. And I'm going to give you 3 steps to do this, right? So rule of thumb is the bigger the company, the more parties are involved. And this often means like more meetings or the deal takes longer to close. Sometimes this can mean like months before the deal actually closes. I just signed a client last week where I had to get 3 decision makers, basically 3 different co-owners and partners on board. And it took 3 meetings. And this is normal, right? And a lot of times it takes longer than that. So just get ready for that and expect that. And that's normal. So as far as how to best navigate this, step 1, my process is first, I have to understand who are the decision makers, right? Otherwise, you're flying blind. You don't know what's happening and you're leaving things up to chance. And this is as simple as just asking your point of contact who the decision makers are, but do it in an elegant way. Don't just ask them like, hey, who are the decision makers? Because when you ask it like that, it can make them think that you don't see them as important or you don't see them as an authority. And you never want to diminish someone's status because then they're not going to like it. So ask it in a different way. And a couple of different more indirect ways you can ask this is you can ask questions like, so after you have the first call with your point of contact, you could ask something like, hey, if we worked together, who else would be involved in this project besides you and I? That's my favorite go-to question that always gets me a lot, right? Another way you could word this is, hey, if it turns out that you wanted to bring me in, who else should I be prepared to meet with? Just coming from the perspective of I'm just trying to be prepared for the next call, right? Another way you could ask it is, hey, next meeting, we're going to go over X and Y and Z. And is there anyone else that it makes sense to invite to that next meeting? So this is more when you're moving to the next call and you want to really see, should there be another decision maker there, right? Just ask, hey, is there anyone else that it makes sense that we should loop in for the next meeting? Simple as that. And another question you can use is, and this is more towards what you're getting towards the close here, is, hey, if you like what I present and you want it to move forward, what does a typical buying process look like for you and your company? What are the next steps? What would the next steps be in order to get started? Because again, you're not the first agency or vendor they've hired. They've hired a lot of people like you before, right? So they have a process. They have people already that they know they need to get sign off from. So you just got to ask them like, hey, paint the picture for me. What happens from here if we want to move forward? What does it look like to actually become an agency or a vendor for your company? So they would already know. So those are my 4 go-to questions to ask throughout the sales process to get a better understanding for who the decision makers are and do it in a way without asking it directly and possibly hurting the person's feelings. Now, step 2 is once you understand who the decision makers are, your next thing is you have to understand what matters to those decision makers and really what's their role in the buying process, right? How do you do that? Same as always. You just do that by asking. Okay, so let's say you find out that the CFO is going to be involved in the decision-making process. You want to first understand their role, right? And if they're even part of the decision-making process, right? So you could ask, hey, just so I can understand how you all work together, what would be that person's role in the process here? Are you just looping them in to keep them informed, or are they needing to sign off on this as well? And if so, what do they want to know? They might invite someone to the next meeting with you, but they're just there to listen and learn, but they might not actually be like one of the people who signs off on it and it collaborates with them on the decision. And if that's the case, you don't need to worry. You don't need to ask anything else. But if they are someone who is involved in the decision and does need to approve this, then you want to find out more about that person's world, right? So then you want to understand like what matters to that person. So a couple of my go-to questions to ask is I'd say something like, okay, hey, so just so I can be prepared for the next meeting with any questions the CEO might have, what do you think he's going to want to know in order to make his decision? What does he care about when it comes to bringing on a company like mine? Another way you could ask it is, hey, what types of questions would he need to be answered? Or what information would he need to have in order to feel comfortable moving forward in something like this? Another one would be, hey, is there anything else that you suggest I do or prepare to make sure that we get the CEO on board? So just asking questions like this will help you understand. They've made a lot of decisions with that person before, right? So they'll tell you like typically the questions they have or what matters to them or what they'd be looking to know at the next call, right? And then you know how you can be prepared to make sure that you win that person over. So it's as simple as that. And then step 3, the last one here is make sure your point of contact is on board because look, you can't always control what's happening with other decision makers at the company. And you're not always going to get to meet all of them, right? Even though you're going to suggest that you invite them to the next call, sometimes they're just going to be someone that you don't meet, right? So you can't always control that, but what you can control is that your point of contact really likes you and they want to hire you, right? So at least make that your top priority because the more sold you can get your point of contact, the more that they're going to put in the effort themselves to sell their superiors on behalf of you, right? Again, you're not always going to be able to meet their superiors, but you can at least make sure that the more sold that your point of contact is, the more that they're going to really go to bat for you. So that's your main goal, right? Look at them as if they're your cheerleader because when they're on board with you, then it's like a collaborative effort. Then you and that person can strategize together. You can prepare together for how they can convince their team and what information or what materials you can arm them with so that they can go make their case for you on their own. So really make sure that you've won that person over as much as possible. All right, so those are the biggest 3 differences that when it comes to actually navigating employees and multiple decision makers. Last tip I'll give you, 5th tip here today is have a low risk foot in the door offer as a fallback plan. So there's been a lot of times where I've lost deals because I went straight for the big sale because, I wanted to get paid multiple 5 figures up front because yes, these clients have the money. But at the end of the day, what I realized is a bigger price tag still means that more trust has to be earned. And you don't always need to go for the home run right away, right? What I wish I would have done back then is just try to get my foot in the door like I do often now. So I would have back then either started off with something small for free, like a lead magnet, doing like an analysis, an audit or a strategy build, just to get working with them, just to get your foot in the door, or doing a low priced offer, some sort of initial step, like whatever that could be for your service, like the first deliverable, step 1, or maybe a pilot of the project for a small amount of money, a few $1,000 or whatever it is. That's a much easier sell to make. And often one person can make that decision without having to get approval from their management, right? So one of my sales mentors taught me this a while back. He was a VP of sales at a big company. And he told me that anything that was like $500 or so, he could just put that on his company credit card and nobody would have to know about it. He could just do that without having to get sign off or approval. So this is especially useful also if you're getting compared against multiple other competitors. This could be a really good way to go because again, like all these other companies are going to come in with their huge bids and you can have a really low risk way for them to try you out. And at the end of the day, the second sale is always easier to make than the first sale. So once you get your foot in the door and provide some sort of value, even if it's a small thing, you won their trust and it's much easier to now ask them for the bigger project, right? So I'd recommend having this at least as a fallback option. Like I said, deliverable, pilot, trial, whatever it is, strategy, whatever the first couple steps of your process would be, just something that's low risk and easier for them to say yes to so that you could be able to win the sale pretty quickly. So that's a wrap. Over the 3 parts of this series, you learned the what and why of loyal clients, how to niche down and how to enhance your offer to attract these clients, our outreach strategy and how marketing to them is different, and how the sales process is different with bigger buyers. Now, if you missed part 1 and 2, definitely go check it out. And this is so important, right? Because when you get this done, you can take some huge leaps in your revenue and double or triple your revenue in a short time frame. That's what a lot of my clients have done once they've implemented this. You can really see a massive growth spurt once you just start landing these big fish clients. You'll have also way more profit on each client because, like we spoke about over the last few parts, these bigger clients aren't always that much more work, right? So at the end of the day, you're getting left with a lot more profit to take home, which means you get paid more for your time. So who doesn't want that? And the other benefit is you'll have a simpler and less complex business with less client management for more revenue. So all good benefits. I definitely recommend you guys watch all 3 parts of this if you haven't already and take action on it. And as we wrap up today's episode, I want to offer a special invitation to a few of you watching to schedule a 20 minutes to whale clients call. I know some of you are going to want some further help and might want to really go all in on whale clients and have my team's help to help you do this. So if so, you must have an appetite for more clients and are tired of relying on word of mouth to get business and looking for a system to find these whale clients and close them. You must already have an offer that works and have a few clients and just be looking to scale up because we don't really help people start a brand new business. And if you're ready to make some simple changes in your offer and your niche focus, and you're interested to try landing whale clients that we spoke about today and start landing these higher ticket deals, then this would be for you. So this would be a complimentary opportunity to speak with my team and I about how we can help, and we can put a plan together to help you out with having a systematic, structured approach to getting new leads and calls booked on your calendar week over week with your ideal clients, double or triple your revenue in the year. That's our goal for all of our clients, and have a consistent flow of new clients rather than up and down months. So if you'd like our help with that, I put a link down below to book your 20-minute chat. And you can also get in touch with me directly to further talk about this and work out a time. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this mini masterclass on landing whale clients. And if you did catch part 1 and 2, check the past few episodes on the show from last week and the week before so that you can make sure you have everything you need to put it all into place. All right, thanks for watching, and I will see all of you soon.